So, has anyone ever been on a train before? Yeah. Have you been on one of those underground trains? What do you call them in the Chicago area? Subway? Okay. So, in the DC area where I'm from, Washington, DC, we call them a metro. I think there's some called metros here. We call it a metro or subway, or there's different, the L I think is another name for it. But they're all kind of the same thing. So I used to commute to school every single day for 4 years on one of these underground subways. And I saw a lot of really interesting things, some really weird things. But there was one of the things that was probably the weirdest of all was the vanishing act of the sleeping man. You want to hear the story? I'm going to tell it anyway. So, you know how sometimes you're really, really tired? You've been on a train or on a subway, especially if you're working and you're getting up late and getting back. And so there was this guy who was just sleeping and snoring, and he was just really, really out. Well, we keep going through all the different stops, and then we get to the very end of the line. The end of the line is where I get off. And usually at the end of the line, they'll have like flickering lights. They'll do like horns, being like, like, and then there'll be someone get on the loudspeaker saying, "All right, everybody, you got to get off. This is the last stop. The train is closed." So everyone's getting off except for the sleeping man. He's just there. He's just sleeping away. And usually there's some sort of attendant that'll, come down and be like, "All right, sir, you got to wake up or so." But no one came. So we're all outside, and the lights keep going. The flickering goes on, and then the person just keeps saying, "All right, you need to get out, you need to get out." The person is sleeping away. So then, to our horror, all of a sudden, after a while, the person's just sleeping, the doors close, and then the lights go out, and then the subway just goes off, with the guy sleeping still in it. So imagine him waking up in the midst of the parking lot of trains, in the middle of the night, in a subway. I mean, how weird that would be. I mean, it's creepy, but it's kind of funny at the same time. And we're all sort of like, "Oh, what's going to happen to that guy? He's just going away. He's just sleeping away." But he was just taken off to who knows where land. So it's a crazy episode, but it reminds us of what Jesus says here. Stay awake. Because he wasn't staying awake. And because of that, he missed the end of the line. When everyone else was able to get off and go to their families, he ended up in the Twilight Zone. I don't know where. It was like something out of the Twilight Zone. So, as human persons, our bodies do need sleep. Maybe that guy really, really needed sleep. Maybe he was up playing video games all night. I don't know. Maybe he didn't have his morning coffee. But we're supposed to get our sleep. We're supposed to be able to sleep and stay awake in our bodies. But there's one part of us that always needs to stay awake, and that's what Jesus is talking about here. It's our soul. Our soul doesn't need sleep. Our soul needs to always stay awake, because it's when our soul falls asleep, that's when we get in trouble. Have you ever found that experience maybe where you just sort of fell into sin? Like you weren't necessarily looking for it, but you just kind of find yourself, maybe you're hanging around with maybe the wrong crowd, and they're saying, "Hey, let's do this," and you're not really thinking about it, and all of a sudden, you're doing something that you're like, "I don't think I should be doing this," but you're not awake in your soul to recognize, and all of a sudden, you've in a sense crossed that line somewhere. That's what happens when our soul goes to sleep. We need to always be awake, because when we're awake, it's like having our armor on. Your baptism, you can think of as medieval armor. Remember when we went to medieval times a little while ago? Remember all that armor that they have? All those plates of mail and helmets and things like that? What if those guys just took the armor and just put it in a pack on their horse? And then they're like, I have my armor, yay! You'd be like, yeah, you have your armor, but it's not going to help you at all. You go into a jousting match with just a t-shirt on that says, hit me with your best shot, then you're not going to fare very, very well. You need to have your armor on. And that's what it means to stay awake. It means make sure that you're living in your baptism. Which means every day, have a prayerful attitude. In the beginning of the day, offer your life to God. At the end of the day, ask yourself with God, how was my day? And commend your sleep to God. And maybe look at what are those ways in which maybe I haven't been the better version of myself. And give that over to God, so that by giving that over to God, it makes you more awake. It's when we just allow little bits of sin to start coming in, we start to become numb. And we start thinking, well, it's not really that bad to tell a lie. I didn't really say that bad of a word to that person. Yeah, I kind of said this thing that wasn't very nice. But do you see how there's like a slippery slope? It kind of goes more and more until there might be something really, really bad, but you've been desensitized to it. And you're just kind of like, oh, that's not really that bad at all. And yet, maybe it is. So stay awake. Make sure that every single day, ask yourself the question, we do this through prayer. Am I awake in my soul? Am I thinking about my relationship with God? Am I asking Him to guide me? Am I asking the Holy Spirit to be the one that moves me so that I don't fall asleep on the train? So that when the lights are saying, this is the last stop, the doors don't close and you go off to the twilight zone. So stay awake.